Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Heart of the Equation. We have not released an episode. It's been a very busy period, but finally we are back again in March with a new episode. And today we are going to talk about the bosses that could, your boss, your team leader, that could actually block your career without intention. So, Pragati, let's start.
Okay, I actually had a little bit of a technical glitch because I couldn't hear the one or two sentences that you spoke. So I hope that the video comes out fine. But yeah, it's such an interesting topic that we are going to tackle today. I'm really, really excited about because this is very personal. It comes from a very personal space of, leaders that have really shaped careers sometimes in a really, really positive way, and sometimes they've just become lessons.
Yes, exactly. Who you work with, your team leader plays an important role in your career. And this is something a lot of us people kind of underestimate it because most of the career advice is about things you have to do. It puts a lot of pressure on the person, like you have to do this and this and this, perform like this, but they are not really taking the whole context into account. Like who is leading the team, who has power over your hiring, your moving forward, your line manager, especially in Switzerland. I think the culture we have in the corporate is like the team leader, the line manager gets a lot of power. It is becoming a little less, but this is like the type of corporate culture in traditional sectors I have known, that who your team leader is the one who could take your profile to certain meetings, who could either stop your career or they could actually push your career, help it grow.
Yeah. No matter what people say that now we have these flat organizations or we don't really operate in these hierarchical settings, let's be honest, most of the corporates, I've been in the corporate world for 20 plus years. I've always had a line manager, or even if I've been in a matrix setups, then I've had two managers. In consulting, what you usually have is one person who's like your counselor, and he or she is your line manager. And then you have so many supervisors because you do multiple projects, say in a
Yeah.
year's time or for multiple years as well. So there are multiple managers, and that could happen in really large organizations where you are reporting not just to one person but to multiple people. But so to say that they really can motivate you, inspire you, make you take that next step that you are a little bit scared of, or they could completely, you dread going to the office because you're not working under great leadership.
Yes.
And you've heard this, right? Multiple times people say that they don't leave an organization for the organization per se, but for the manager that they were working for.
Yes, exactly. And also the other way around. Sometimes I've seen like the companies are struggling, so many like negative things are happening, but because the team leader is like protecting the team, having very good communication, comes across as a person who cares, a lot of people put up with a lot of negative stuff just because of the team leader, the spirit, the humanity of that person. So that is also true. But, I wrote this LinkedIn article a little while ago about the types of bosses that could block your career. I had a like firsthand experience of a lot of them, but also hearing from clients, I noticed like it's not only these few people I met in my life. It's certain profiles that show up, like archetypes that show up in pretty much everyone's lives. And some of them, of course, they're very visible that we know that this person is going to get in the way, but some of them actually innocent, nice people. You would never think of that this actually my line manager is not going to help with my career. So that was something for me. It was like a revelation when I noticed that. So what are your experiences, Pragati, about like line managers that could become a problem for the career?
I've had quite a few. I've had quite a few. You have the most recent one that comes to my mind is somewhat a manager who's kind of insecure. I remember that once upon a time, I had a manager where I just stepped into a project and we were just taking on this new project and a new client. And for both of us, this was a new portfolio being added to our existing set of deliverables, and so to say. And this particular person would never let me talk to the client directly, or the client leads directly, because they wanted that sort of visibility and to kind of make sure that, because I was reporting into this person, that I am working for them and they are the front face in front of the client. So you will, I mean, it could be very different contextual settings, but I'm sure even you've had an experience where the boss was kind of insecure of their subordinate.
Yes, I definitely had this experience. In my case, I was working with suppliers in sourcing. The problem was not really the suppliers. He didn't like us in the team to connect with our like higher level, what do you call it, skip level, be too visible in front of the skip level. So he wanted to control every word that was said. Sometimes he was even tell us that do not say anything, just be in the meeting, don't say a word. He was trying to
Crazy.
control what is coming
Yeah.
through. Even having a coffee with our skip level manager would make him very uncomfortable. I was much younger back then, or also much less experienced with a lot of these things. I couldn't really understand what is the problem. And I remember there was once I had a very good relationship with a higher level manager from another team, because he was also from the same nationality I had, like my other nationality. And
Yeah.
we just, connected and we were chatting. And I remember it was such a big deal for him that why am I talking to this person? I was like, what's going on? Then I noticed, of course, he feels threatened, or he's like, think he's having this scarcity mindset that's wants to sort of control
Yeah.
all the resources, and others growing meant he wasn't growing. So there was something about him. And I
Yes.
wasn't the only one. I was actually very naive, but this was something I also heard, like, he's doing that to everyone else. And he actually had a very good relationship with me. But these behaviors, unfortunately, these behaviors exist.
Absolutely. You can't sometimes, kind of exclude yourself from the situation and
Yeah.
have that perspective. When you are in that situation, you are really confused and you are very uncomfortable yourself. What's going on? Like, what am I doing wrong here?
Yeah.
Because in your previous work or your previous project, your behavior was not just normal, but was appreciated. And then you are putting in the same good practices. But then there's someone who's not okay with that.
Yes, yeah. There's also this term called gaslighting,
Yeah.
which is going around, that someone, usually with, don't want to label it, but narcissistic traits, is making you think you're the problem, or making you think there is no problem, everything is fine. So you are a little confused. You sense in your body that something is not good, but you cannot put your finger on it. And this other person who has some power on you makes you think that there is no problem, and you're the one who's imagining things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this happens a lot. Unfortunately, if you're not familiar with this behavioral trait, you might continue to think like, I might be wrong. He's my boss, knows better, or she's my boss,
Yeah.
has more experience, knows something I don't know. And you would go with the problem for so long and put up with bad behavior for so long. So yeah,
And
this is,
yeah, and I just want to say that if someone listening right now is feeling that way, that hey, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me,
yeah,
like Taylor Swift says it. It's very normal that you feel like that. We've all been there.
yeah.
So it's not you that's the problem. These sort of situations kind of keep you guessing, and that's typical behaviors that these
Mm.
kind of managers really want you to kind of feel. That's the feeling that they are trying to tap on, that you are very uncertain of how you should behave, because you kind of start saying to yourself, your internal dialogue is telling yourself that, I think there's something wrong with me, because this person is still saying that I'm very supportive of you.
Yeah. Yes, actually, this is the thing. This is more about the narcissistic behavior. And I'm always careful not to label anyone, because someone might be also nice, good person, but they have these traits, these personality things that shows up in the behavior. It comes from insecurity, of course, that they may not be even aware of it. I also want to be careful that we are not here to blame the boss for all the
Yeah.
problems. We are in corporate systems, you are working with other humans. Everyone has some form of fear and insecurity in something. Some people address it, some people do not want to admit they have a problem. Usually, this sort of narcissistic type is the person who doesn't want to admit they have insecurities. They have a lot of insecurities. These are also the type of leaders who don't get much of coaching themselves, don't get much feedback because every feedback is a threat to them. So they create an environment around them that they only get a lot of positive feedback. Their connections are mostly like people who reinforce how good they are. So they create that. And then at the same time, it's not that they are aggressive or crazy. They could be giving you a lot of support and
Yeah.
love and attention, mentor you, but they're actually control. So it is
Yeah.
a bit of a complex behavior. If you're not familiar with it, you could get drowned in this situation. So it's all about being aware of this behavior here is not exactly helping me.
Yeah. And also, I think one of the solutions that worked for me, and sometimes, there is no solution to it.
Yes.
Uh,
Sometimes you just have to leave, I think.
Sometimes you just have to leave the tea. And that's the biggest solution or the biggest favor that you do to yourself, because it takes very long for you to spot it.
Yeah.
And then you have already gone through too much by the time you realize that, hey, it's not me that's the problem here,
Yeah.
but I am just playing to someone's insecurities all the time. The other way to also deal with some people who will be insecure just in the beginning because they are trying to, establish that, hey, I am the boss, I'm the boss, I'm the boss. And they really need to shout it out from the top of a building
Mhm.
that you must know that this is like, I'm the boss here. So then you play into, hey, gaining their trust, building confidence, making sure that you are still very much a team together and trying to kind of calm them down that, us together as a team does not bring you, kind of out of the game or, stops you from your growth, but it kind of enables you. So,
Yes.
and you have to be very patient with that journey and do
Yeah.
that very gradually.
That is true. Is also seeing every challenging opportunity as a learning opportunity, because if you're not going there with that mindset, you would feel like a victim. You would always feel like, oh, my boss is crazy. My boss is doing this toxic environment. Poor me, poor
Yeah.
little me. And that's
Because
why
there
this
is
is
this
happening.
other side to it, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sure you see this with your clients all the time. I've seen it with so many colleagues around me. I've seen it with myself. Sometimes you go into this mode of self pity that nothing will ever change, and then you're not doing much to change it either. So
Yeah.
what I saw real improvements when I started to implement the solution of building confidence and making sure that the person, not just through the words, but through your actions, understand that you are not a threat. Rather, you are an enabler
Mhm.
for, you know, combined growth. If they see it, if they are smart enough as well, and they see it, then they get out of your way.
Yes, that is true. Actually, I think also a little while ago I had maybe was it a it was a conversation. It should be somewhere. It's an article actually I wrote. It was about managing up and also dealing with micromanaging bosses, because all of us have experienced that at some point. Sometimes you can actually find a way of surviving because you can't always just quit. Sometimes you have the luxury, you could say, okay, life is too short. I don't want to put up with this, and I could go to another company. But sometimes we actually in a position that we have to put up with that behavior. A lot of these insecure people, they lack a lot of safety. So by giving them as much safety, as much information, making them feel safe with you,
Yes.
can tolerate that behavior to some level, but you always have to be aware that this person is not to be 100%, so not to be 100% vulnerable in front of this
Yeah.
person. Make sure like you document everything, always be conscious of what information am I sharing with this person about like a
Mm.
vulnerability, a weakness of mine. It is tricky because it takes a bit of political awareness, it takes a lot of energy, but when you're in the situation that you have to put up with a very insecure kind of person, you need to manage them up. You need to take care of themselves a little bit so that they don't become a burden in your
Absolutely. You need to
Okay.
draw your boundaries. You have to be very careful of every word that you speak in front of them. Personal stuff is a big no, no, no.
Yeah.
In such cases. And sometimes it's very easy for other people around you to say that just quit then. It's very difficult. And I'm sure the people who are listening will resonate with this part. It's not so easy to just leave.
No, and also sometimes it's not a good idea.
It's not
Because
a good
what
idea.
if you're in a sort of a situation that's, if you can survive, a good promotion is on the way. Or I've seen cases that, okay, the line manager was a bit of a problem, but there is like a higher level or someone else that there are some
Who's
opportunities.
championing you? Yeah.
Yes. So, but you also need to show that you can handle this without drama. Because also I don't know about all industries, but at least the traditional ones I had worked with in Switzerland, being composed is kind of a thing. Like being the calm, composed person who doesn't create drama is something that is appreciated. And sometimes in these situations, unfortunately, if you're the one who speaks up in a very vocal way, it gets to HR everywhere, you could be labeled as the trouble person. So
The
you want to be
troublemaker. Yeah.
very
Yeah.
strategic about it. Like if you're in a tricky situation, maybe start getting support, good advice
Yeah.
first before being vocal about like going everywhere
It's a
saying my
delicate
boss is
line. Yeah.
crazy
Yeah.
and cutting the lines of communication. That could label you. And the country
As
is
a
so
difficult
small.
person to work with. Everyone who will have the opportunity to take you in their team will then think twice.
Yes.
I've had a friend, and I'm so glad you brought this up. And there's a real life example. A very close friend of mine, American, now in Switzerland, in the higher levels of leadership, working in the pharma industry. It was innate, it was in her nature that she would bring up things and then, to the extent that there were not just HR complaints, but also cases, lawsuits, and things like that. And eventually, at some point in time, while she was labeled difficult to work with, she also lost her job. So they are keeping count
Yeah. Yeah.
of, how many times. It's great to stand up for yourself, but it's a very delicate line
Yes.
that might, especially in Europe, you have to have a certain balance of how you maintain boundaries and then how you exhibit different leadership capabilities.
Yes, exactly. I think maybe in French and Italy is a little different, but
Yeah.
especially in Switzerland, you even see it in Swiss politics, how it's very discreet. Sometimes we're annoyed why someone is quiet, and it's not that you're not speaking up. It's like this works. That is why Switzerland is like in this position, negotiating on behalf of a lot of troubled countries, mediating. It takes a little bit of like swallowing the pain, pausing first before you react, and be strategic. We are not saying that like be quiet, do nothing, but ask for advice, pause, calculate your steps, that make sure that this whole situation does not label you as like the drama queen.
The drama queen, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is something like in pharma, for example. These are like in supply chain because it's fast moving. So we just lost connection for a few seconds. So yeah, that was about the drama queen situation that you don't want to be labeled with. So this was about the visibly difficult boss. Let's also move into the other type, which is more invisible. The bosses that are nice, like the line manager that is nice and supportive, a good person, like a good human, protecting their team, but they are blocking your career, not because they want to, but because they have their own limiting beliefs about who you are and what you can do, constantly telling you should be doing this and that, or they do not have enough power in the higher, like they can't advocate for you because the higher level manager does not really care about their opinion. So what would you like to share about that, Pragati? I saw you were smiling.
I mean, I've had the pleasure or the displeasure of having both of, and these could be absolutely two very different people. Very nice, kind of coached you really well, made sure that, you get it, advocates for you in the little meetings that gives you the opportunity to speak up and all of that, but does not have any power when it comes to the really important stuff, which is your growth at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So there are those, and then there are those that are completely trying to protect you, and they keep you at the same role because
Yeah.
it's absolutely very, very comfortable for them and for you.
Yes.
You don't challenge your your teams enough, they also kind of then start to resist that sort of behaviors. I mean, I'm also thinking from, I used to also, as a manager myself, and you'd remember, I had like really, really large teams,
Yeah.
and I would speak with my team leads all the time. And this is one thing that I learned by practice again and again. I would spoon feed my teams. I had this problem. I think I have this innate motherly instinct,
Yes, being the mom.
being a mom, that I used to treat the team leads as my children, almost like my children. And I say the same thing to my students right now, that I am not going to be doing this anymore. And I will give you ideas. I will coach you. If you are lost, I will definitely give you direction. But if you're looking for the answer or the solution, I'm sure you can find it.
Yeah.
And I think that really, really empowers them rather than having a boss that kind of completely spoon feeds them. I was smiling because I could see a lot of myself when you were talking about it as well. I mean, they also, as people listening, you might be able to relate to these kind of personas that we are talking about and see yourself in it. And that's absolutely fine as well.
Yes, of course. I've been in many situations a bad team leader. I always say it very openly. And this is something sometimes we don't also know, we're not gods, you could be
Yeah.
leading a team and you rely on your intuition. And sometimes there is also so many challenging things happening. But this situation that you describe, actually, I had a client. She was also a team leader and she had a team member who was underperforming, and there was like some sort of information from the above management that this person, you need to tell them they're not going to be here,
Oh my God.
very
Yeah.
near firing. And she was like, she had this mothering thing, protecting everyone. She was so stuck in that story of no, 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 I'm not going to let them fire this person. But then in our conversation later on, we kind of saw like, what if you're blocking this person? This person is smart, but is stuck in a job that is wrong for them,
Wrong for them. Yeah.
underperforming because it's not even the right job for them. Why don't you help them, coach them to actually go to another position? And there was some opportunities already open, but she was
Absolutely.
actually blocking a team member out of like with good intentions, but it was not good. And it
Yeah.
was a bit of a process. And I'm sure I've done that too, because sometimes we just see this sort of just in front of us. Like these parents who are like super controlling, never letting their kids going, like trying new things because it's dangerous. It's a little bit like that.
It's a little bit like that. Yeah. And I think I relate a lot to this because, yeah, I learned it the hard way. Because then you also become the blocker for them. They will
Yes.
never be able to operate without you telling them exactly what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you cannot be everywhere all the time, like they say, right? So you need people who are empowered enough to take their own decisions in case you've fallen sick, or you need to concentrate on another thing, or you are running multiple projects. So you're doing a big disservice to yourself when you really handhold your teams.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's your position of, this is my stance on leadership, because that's really, really not the right way to lead teams.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. This is also something. It's quite you that's why team leaders get burned out, especially
Yeah.
those who are leading big teams, because if you want to do like take care of every little detail and not trusting all these humans who are doing their job, it's going to be a lot of work. It's quite a stressful, and it's going to be tough, but it also is a journey. I think it's one of those things. It's so easy to talk about it from a theory point of view, but there are mistakes you just have to make in order to move on. That's why, I also look back like 5 years ago, 4 years ago. I was thinking like if there is a team, and still like now I have a small company, work with people. I wasn't really thinking about their development. I was so task focused. I was thinking like,
Yeah.
this is a product, this is a project, it needs to happen, get it done. And once it was done and they had space, I would just give them more work. So, and I was thinking everyone is responsible for their own development. I wasn't really, now I look back and say, like, sometimes I probably
Yeah.
should have paid more attention to that instead of loading them with like a lot of tasks. sometimes it would be good to see like, oh, this person could think a bit more strategically. Maybe they could actually help with a bigger project, seeing things differently. So I'm totally guilty of that
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
It's not so easy, especially that when you're in a leadership position, running a company, or there is a lot of pressure. You're doing a lot of things. So sometimes we also can't think clearly. That is why I want everyone to take ownership of their careers. Your team leader, they are not responsible for your growth and they're too busy. So sometimes you have to manage them.
Yeah.
You have to manage up for sure, but also be mindful of your own career growth. Don't wait for them because they've enough on their plates.
That's true. That's true. And it's normal, right? That your boss could be very, very task focused because he or she has that much on their plates that they are available to you when you really, really need them. So use that card also very, wisely. There is, with my husband, we always talk about this, that there is this super boss that they all have. And it's like a currency that you don't want to spend because just talking to him for
Yeah,
getting his time for 30 minutes is so valuable. And you will always have this in organizations, especially when you are talking about your skip level or skip
yeah,
level managers and you have a relationship that you've built because of your good work. Use that time very wisely with them and don't go to
exactly.
them very, on a very daily basis, so to say.
Yes, and this is actually less talked about because some of these bosses I've seen their door is open. You could they also are easy to contact with, but
To
it doesn't
approach.
mean that you constantly go to them for every little
Yes.
thing. They also want to see you that you can handle a lot of things and you're only going to them for really strategic topics that
Yeah.
is like relevant on their
Absolutely.
level. Taking like pity fights, or I don't know. I know it's hard, but please be very careful how you
Be
use
very
that
careful
time.
of how you, because you are the architect of your career, like we always say this in
Yeah,
all of our podcasts. I think we've said this. So be very mindful of who are the right people who are going to influence your growth and what is the messaging that you bring across, how you're perceived, what is your impression inside the organization. You might be leading a lot of people and you are also being led by people, right? It's always like you always have to kind of manage both the sides.
exactly. Yeah. And also before we kind of towards the end of the episode, there's also one type I want everyone to be careful, especially if they are in the beginning of their careers and the boss is their mentor, is they might have an opinion around what you're good at, but sometimes they might also impose their limiting beliefs on you. You're not built for this. If you hear this feedback, your heart is calling you to be in a certain industry or a certain job, but then someone told you that I don't think that's right for you. Someone trying to show they know you better than yourself, I would be careful with that. You are the one who can design your career. And yes, the mentor you respect might have an opinion about you, your skills, but you are the one who decides. So don't get also too caught up in that
Yeah.
story. The example I've seen a lot is like people being told that you're not strategic enough, you're too operational, or you're too introverted, or like someone has built this sort of idea about them. But all of these things could be changed. Leadership skills are learnable. Being leadership material is something, it's not the gene. You learn these things if you want.
Yes. Yeah.
So also do not really give too much power to some of this feedback. That might come from a
I
person who
love
actually
that. I
cares.
love that. It's so important because sometimes, especially when you're very young and you're starting out, it's very normal that you kind of take this as the gospel truth, but it's not.
Yeah.
And leadership can be learned. I mean, I am a very big example of that. I was an individual contributor for the first 8 years of my career because I had a very hardcore technical role where I was supposed to write programs and test and design and develop solutions. So I was really an individual contributor to, getting into leadership positions because I really wanted to do that. So it's not that it cannot be learned. And you make so many mistakes along the way, but let no one else judge what you can or cannot do. Because sometimes you surprise yourself with so many things that you do. Like,
Yeah.
I can't believe that I had a team of 300 people
Mm.
in my last role. I cannot believe it sometimes. And I was one of those developers that I was leading. in the first 8 years, like I spoke about it.
That's amazing. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. It shows how our capacity develops. And yeah, I also I have a different sort of situation. Sometimes I look back with regret at some of the mistakes I
Mm.
made. Like, I wish I knew about this leadership stuff
All
earlier.
of us do.
I
All
just
of
relied on my common sense. I believed in certain things too much. I got caught up in certain stories and I suffered a lot. If I knew what I know now, I would have had a much easier time. I wish I had asked for good support back then. But yeah, you learn things the hard.
That's how you learn. That's
Yeah.
why I said these are those precious lessons that we've had.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. So with all of that said, so I don't have anything more to share. Of course, we could tell a lot of stories. Is there anything you'd like to add before we say goodbye, Pragati?
Actually, no, but I'm thinking that we should do a follow-up episode on this one,
Yeah.
talking about all the managers who really made us see our potential before we did.
Yes. Yes.
We should
Yeah.
also talk about those. Of course, these examples were so much more critical because these are the ones that you ponder about the most, and you have that sense of regret sometimes. Oh, I should have said that, or oh, I could have done this so much better, or I should have believed in myself a little bit more and not let the other person dictate things. So of course, it was one of the most important conversations to have. But I also want to definitely do a part 2 on this and talk about all the amazing people who shaped our lives, especially our professional journeys. Because I
Yes.
have a lot of those examples as well.
Yes, me too, actually. That's why you never do it alone. Do not think you will do this alone with just mindset and journaling.
Yeah.
You need other people. And yeah, definitely to do an episode for all those humans that were part of our story and we are where we are because of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Forever grateful for those people. So we will definitely talk about that. But in the meantime, we want to hear from you. So send us messages, send us comments, find us on LinkedIn, connect with us, and tell us. Maybe you don't want to leave a public comment of a story that you have, but we are all ears listening to, the kind of difficult situations or bosses that you've dealt with.
Yes, exactly. We'd like to hear about more cases. If you have, send us a message. And yeah, we would cover that too if you haven't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, Pragati. And thank you so much to everyone's listening and hopefully see you soon in the next episode.
See you. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Equation. If this episode has sparked something for you, we'd love to hear about it.
Be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with us on LinkedIn and Instagram to continue the conversation.
And if you know someone who is navigating their next career step, share this episode with them. It could be exactly what they need.
We see you next time as we explore more about leading with purpose, resilience, and authenticity.
Let's keep growing together.